I think it was coming out of the
Someone
speaker.
needs to be muted on Zoom.
Yes. Community captions on.
Okay, welcome everyone to the November 21st meeting of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board. Tonight we have one public hearing and 6 application reviews to get through. I'd like to start the meeting with some administrative business. First, did everyone get a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? For everyone who was here at least. Okay, could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Next up, if we have our liaison from the Ulster County Planning Board, and Village Board, Bill Murray. Any updates? No? Okay. Seeing none. Any updates from the Town Planning Board? Have you been following any of the meetings?
I do follow some of them, but I don't have any updates.
You?
But would you like me to give you updates at the next meeting on the town board or on the town planning board? Or on both?
I think I would like to follow more closely what the Town Planning Board is
So
discussing.
you're asking
So,
me to
um,
report on that at the next meeting and going forward?
we can discuss it. Yeah, just something I'm just thinking about.
I know what happened, because I was at the Environmental Policy Board. They agreed to uphold the wetlands law that was being, and to hold the people of the clay disc shooting people that had illegally filled in wetlands,
The
built
hunting,
roads.
the hunter?
Yeah. And they agreed to, they agreed to hold the line. They're gonna uphold the wetlands law and, they're going to ask them to remediate the wetlands that they illegally filled in. That was what I,
Okay, thank you for that
Thanks for sharing that.
update. Yeah. Next, I'd like to move into public comment. If anyone has any general public comments tonight, please raise your hand. Seeing none in the audience, would like to acknowledge that we received 3 comments regarding the New Paltz Apartments project from Bassam and Mohammed Serda, Ariana Basco, and Kitty Brown. That public hearing will resume on December 5th. And we're still accepting written comments regarding that project. Next up, our public hearing, like to get a motion to open the public hearing for PB 22-18, 6810 Cooper Street.
I think it's 23, right? Yeah, that
Oh,
was my,
sorry.
it's 20, because it was 2218, but the amendment is 2318.
Okay. Great, so motion to open public hearing for PB 23-18.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Would anyone like to make a comment regarding this application, 6810 Cooper Street? Okay. Being none, I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing for 23-18.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. In that case, like to move on to the application review for 23-18, 6810 Hoover Street. Okay, so at our last meeting, we authorized our attorney to draft a resolution of approval. Assuming there hasn't been any changes since then, and new to report. In that case, I'd like to just quickly go through the resolution. So just a quick summary, Net Zero Townhomes LLC has previously been granted site plan approval to build 3 two-family dwellings, 1 on each of 3 existing parcels. The applicant has submitted a site plan amendment application to change the roof line of the building to allow for a better surface for solar panel installation. There's no change to the footprint of the building or the site improvements. Then there's some other standard language here, including the findings and then we have one specific condition that I'll read. 1, a note will be added to the grading and utility plan specifying that the westernmost swale will be regularly mowed and kept free of debris. So you're aware of that condition.
That was in the original.
There are just some regular general conditions. Does anyone on the board have any comments about the resolution?
I don't, but I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask Mr. Shepherd, just because the Zero Place building is an exemplar of what the county is asking us to do. And none of the other applications before us have solar panels or geothermal. And I was just wondering if there's any way that maybe you can help. I didn't realize that we could be pushing this harder. And the county sent us a memo recommending that we do that. And so I would like to try. And so far, you're the only building that's done both those things. And then,
And these will also have that.
yeah. So I'm wondering if maybe you can help. And the other question I wanted to ask you was about the affordable housing units. How many are there in your building again?
5.
There are 5. And how much of a discount, like, is it the same for each one? How does that, I'm sorry, I don't want to take up time for this, but it seems like the main question that we're being asked about is affordable housing.
I'm happy to talk to you offline
Well,
about.
I'll ask
Yeah.
you that.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, if there are no questions about this project or this resolution, I would like to get a motion to approve the resolution.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution.
Okay,
Second.
and could we have a roll call vote on?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
All set.
You have my contact information, right, Ray?
Yeah. Okay, next up, TB 23-17, 5 Church Street. Hello. Can we start? Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's plenty of room, and it's not in the shop.
My name is Alan Ross. I'm the architect representing Young Cho and Sean Kong, who are the owners of 5 Church Street. We're here tonight to apply for a special use permit, and which will allow them to have a short-term rental. The building is in the B2 core business district, and I'm sure you're familiar with the street right across from Acquiring Mines. It houses the Krishna Kitchen on the first floor, and there's currently an apartment, 2-bedroom apartment on the second floor. It's approximately 800 square feet, the apartment. No physical changes for the building are planned or being applied for. You might know the building historically was called the Cloud House. Originally, it had clouds on it, and way back it had portraits of the Beatles in their Yellow Submarine phase. And then the portraits went away. It was just still called the Cloud House with clouds and blue background. And the owner still referred to it as the Cloud House. And it's still painted blue, as you can see here. It has a lot of presence on the street, and it's a lot of I think it's boxing above its weight in terms of it's kind of idiosyncratic presence there. So all that is being respected and being maintained, and sort of part of the owner's intent. Both Singh and Ing Yong lived in New Paltz for 5 years. They met here and went to school here, and have I guess they left in 2007 approximately. So they have kind of deep roots in the town, in the village, and care about the village, and return regularly to recreate, be part of the neighborhood. And they are thoughtful landlords to the Krishna Kitchen, and before that, the previous restaurant. Endicott, yeah.
And they personally, there was like 2, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that these aren't absentee landlords who don't care about the village and are just trying to make a cash cow out of a building. They're actually involved, and they do care. The short-term rental option would allow them to coordinate their visits to New Paltz with those of the tenants, where a long-term rental option only wouldn't allow that. So the way the short-term rental would work is that when the tenants weren't there, they could come to New Paltz to maintain the property, to look in on whatever has to happen. They also own a property at 25 Chestnut, and that would their other option would be to find some expensive place to stay, which would make keeping the rent for the Krishna Kitchen affordable and make the whole building less financially viable. So, and then in terms of the effect on the neighborhood, I think that a short-term rental in that particular area, which really is kind of the heart of the village in terms of its commercial district and kind of charm, would be an asset. It's a place I would want to stay, or if people who are actually living in the village, they have relatives, they don't have space to put up their relatives. It's nice to have a short-term rental right there in a walking area.
Great, thank you. You provided a narrative going through how you're addressing the SCP criteria.
Yeah, they did. So that was, I think, part of their first application on the 23rd of October. Let me pull that out.
Is someone living in the apartment now?
No. No, there was a tenant there who was, I think, somewhat destructive of the property and no longer there. So, you're referring to the questions, the narrative questions.
Yeah, there are a number of items in the code that
I have the answers, but I'm looking for the questions. They were part of the, of that submission on the 23rd.
Are those in the folder on?
Yes, they are. It's at their responses are at the end of the application. Like it's the fourth page of the application.
I mean, if you read the questions, I can tell you the answers.
If located in a residential district with a proposed use meet community need or convenience.
Not applicable. It's business zone.
I don't know if they can hear me on the mic over there.
I think that's okay. If you could just read the rest of the questions.
Question 2, considering A, the location and size of the use, B, the nature and intensity of proposed operations, and C, the size of the site and the location with respect to streets providing access, will the proposed use be in harmony with the appropriate orderly development zoning district in which it's located?
Yes, it would be because effectively the use would not be different from long-term residential use. You have the same number of people that could stay there, and they would be largely walking to a variety of activities.
Can I ask a question about that? I know it's a two bedroom, 2-bath apartment. And I'm not really familiar with how short-term rentals work or how you publicize them. But is there a limit to the number of occupants that you can and or will set for the apartment? When
You mean
it's
that through that the short-term rental platform?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we can actually limit that the number of guests.
right?
We always stick to not too much crowded. So maybe if they wanted like 2-bedroom, then we will stick to the limit to like 4 guests,
Right.
up to 4 guests. And then when they wanna like just to rent 1 bedroom, then we just will stick to the limit to the 2 guests. But when they-
Is that what you're using?
It's like Airbnb or VRBO. Yeah,
What's that other thing?
Airbnb and the VRBO.
VIBO?
Yeah.
One of the advantages of both those is that the potential tenants are screened over multiple visits to other places. And so you can screen out people that might be noisy or destructive or you know,
And then that
somewhat, yeah, that's a concern of the owners, that they want to make sure the place is well kept.
And then that the first floor, we have a like Christian kitchen, but it's been almost 3 years. I think this coming January or February is gonna be like 3 full year, but like after the COVID, we have like some commercial, like the businesses around in the neighborhood actually had some problems, and then they don't have bring in enough cash or revenues. So we actually started the offering that the guest, whoever the coming staying on the second floor, I think they can get some discount from the Christian kitchen.
Great.
That way we can maximize the profit on the building wise, and then we can just help each other mutually benefit for this. So
Yeah, there's a synergy going on there.
yes, you know, yes.
So I don't know if the code either, suggests it or prohibits it, but are we able to discuss the potential to request that the short-term rental approval be contingent on or have a condition of limiting the number of guests in the rental when it's in use?
It's a special use permit, so we have quite a bit of latitude on conditions in order to make sure it's meeting those criteria. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you would object to that. Would you object to a limit of 4 people?
I'm fine with it, yeah.
I think it's a consideration for the neighborhood that would make a lot of sense. It doesn't seem like it's in conflict to what your business idea is. Yeah, I think it would just be a good guideline that if ever needing could be enforced.
Yeah, I support that idea too. Okay, so I believe that you've responded to all of the special use permit criteria outlined in 212-40. Also, are you aware of the requirements in section 129.5 regarding like requiring emergency information by the door.
Sorry, I didn't get to that.
annual-
The emergency car will be posted as required, and
Right,
the annual inspection will take place.
okay, great, so that's, you're aware of those, planning on implementing those. Did we ever hear back from the building inspector if this building
Yes.
was, so it's pre-existing non-conforming?
Correct.
Okay.
So the dimensional restrictions wouldn't apply.
Yeah. So in that case, to me, the site plan looks more than adequate. And I don't know, if the rest of the board got a chance to look at that, but I'm happy with what's presented here. I would recommend that we set a public hearing as the next step. Everyone's all right with that?
Yeah.
In that case, could I get a motion to set a public hearing for probably not December 5th, right? That's going to be a big, yeah. So maybe meetings after that, the 19th. Does that look okay? Okay. Yeah, could I get a motion to set the public hearing for December 19th?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, so thank you for your presentation, and we will see you on December 19th for the public hearing. And I guess, would it be, I'm thinking maybe we could also authorize a resolution of approval, since I don't anticipate many objections to this. Okay, could I get a motion to authorize our attorney to draft a resolution of approval for this application? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. So we'll see you then.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Next, we have PB 22-04, 184 Main Street.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
Good evening. Winter is here.
Do you want to tell here?
okay, could you just start by walking us through this latest
Sure.
site plan, any revisions that we should be aware of?
So we addressed the village engineer's comments. Which were about the dry well, indicating that we need to clean it out, vacuum it out before it's used. We added those notes. We need a grease trap because there's a kitchen, so we put an exterior grease trap on the plan and separated it from the regular sewer. Put the details on there. And a backflow prevention on the water service, we added that as well. Couple other changes, we noted at one site visit, there's a little bit of drainage, comes off the convenient parking lot that goes around the sidewalk and comes right onto their property. So we added a catch basin in that location to pick up that drainage. Hours of operation, we added that to sheet PB1.
I'm sorry, Andy, is there any ice formation or risk there of where that water flows onto your property?
No, that usually happens when it's like flat and there's no pitch, but it really just kind of goes in between the curb and the end of that wall. It just comes right on. We just need to, there's actually a catch basin there right now that picks it up.
Would you say upgrade that?
Yeah, well, we didn't have one there because it was hard to see that there was drainage like skipping that wall. So we added one, so it'll pick it up. So let's see, I'll get into the
So where PB1, that's the
first sheet on the top right. It's 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay.
All right, and let's see, so originally we were gonna use some of the existing sidewalk because it wasn't in that bad shape, but we talked to the DOT and we decided to just replace all the sidewalks. It's gonna be brand new sidewalk along the whole frontage. And then truck turning, so to turn around a truck, the largest truck that will access this lot would be a garbage truck, front loading garbage truck. So to fully turn it around properly, we had to change that southwest corner to actually have an area to pull all the way in and then back out. And we had to lose one parking space to be able to do that. So then we'd actually turn around a truck of that
Is that
size.
where the deliveries are gonna go also?
Yeah, so that any deliveries would be a truck smaller than that. So that's a 32-foot truck, so all deliveries are usually 30-foot or less.
Is it gonna be like a little loading dock?
No, there's no loading docks. That's usually only if it's like a major, supply.
So
Or
they're just gonna like unload it to the back door?
they're gonna unload it, like other businesses do but they'll be able to turn around and pull right up to the front, and load it right on the sidewalk.
So like a beer truck's gonna be able to turn around in there?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's why we did that change.
so any truck, not like a semi, there's not gonna be any of that coming to this, but any FedEx truck or regular delivery trucks will all be able to turn around with this new change.
When we,
Okay.
I don't know what point it makes sense to discuss it, but I know that one of the considerations was the net parking requirement for off-site versus on-site. Sounds like that's changed by one. So has that been updated in all the material?
That's something we could talk about. I believe Mark Nadalny is on, and Creighton Manning, he's a traffic engineer on the project, but when we get into the DOT stuff, maybe we can get into that. Which would be next.
Now.
Okay. All right, so most of this stuff would be Mark's to discuss. It gets into traffic issues, but the couple of things that's kind of on my end is
This is about
the inner access between the two parcels. So it's really not possible for a couple of different reasons, but the main one being that here, it's hard to show you, but our access drive aligns with the building, the building on the property here. So it doesn't, even if there's a 3-foot drop in grade, which would be really difficult to make this site work and have everything handicap accessible, it would be almost impossible really without huge ramps. But if we can't extend the driveway as is because it runs right into the side of the building, it would be a complete redesign of the entire site to make it work. And the grades don't work, and their dumpsters right there, and their parking, they would lose, and it's just not. I think it's a good thing to try, but it just doesn't really work here. Let's see, and then the other issues.
But with that, I'm sorry, like some of the notes, some of the comments from the county aren't entirely clear what's being recommended or even identified. But what I think is the reality is that it's generally about that there are going to be times when it's going to be challenging to pull out of there or in there because the backup from the light will mean that there's gridlock coming out or gridlock trying to left turn in. And I'm not sure I'm clear on what they've identified as the challenge around that and or the solution, other than saying, well, if they could go to 32, they could use the light and it would all be fine, but that's not an option. So I just want to highlight the fact that I just think we are evaluating an application that's going to worsen the flow of traffic there because currently there's none and there will be some, not a ton, but some. And I'm not sure exactly how we want to kind of try to navigate the county's recommendation or the county's
DOT.
Maybe your engineer can help us think that through. I don't know if it's limitations on pulling out. I don't know if it's signage that could address it exclusively, but I know it's a problem.
And you're saying DOT, you mean DOT, not county, right?
No.
It's DOT, oh yeah, it's the county division of the DOT.
Yeah,
You're
okay.
talking about this letter from Michael.
Yeah.
Tinney?
Like 10, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Just want to make sure we're talking about the same.
Well, the county told us we had to deal with that, so it kind of.
Yeah. Mark, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Maybe you can kind of summarize where we're at.
Yeah, sure. I'm Mark Nadolny. I'm an associate with Creighton Manning, and we did the original trip generation and parking assessment for the project. And a few weeks ago, we did get those comments from DOT. I can run through. We're in the process of responding to them, and I can just kind of go through some of those comments that they did have. One of them was focusing on the restaurant use and whether or not it was appropriate to use a sort of a high turnover sit down restaurant as the trip generation land use code. If you look at the definitions in the trip generation handbook, it really those types of uses really focus on more like chain restaurants and like Fridays and Applebee's and things, and it's not really the intent of the restaurant use. It's more like an amenity for the boutique hotel and a little bit more fine dining than it would be this high turnover restaurant. That being said, we did do a trip generation comparison, and if it was that sort of land use, it would generate maybe 20 more trips than what we have currently. That being said, we're not really relying on the parking lot to accommodate the trips for the restaurant. The parking lot is really more or less for the hotel guests. Typically they're the ones that are going to be parking and probably staying a lot longer. So there's not going to be as much available parking on site for a restaurant user. So they'll be, parking on street in other places. So we did that. They also asked about a noon peak hour versus the AM or the PM commuter peak or the Saturday peak. There's no real trip generation for a specific noon peak hour during a day. So what we ended up looking at was some time of day variation data that DOT or that ITE does have. And if you look at that, there is a potential that a restaurant, like more like a high turnover restaurant could generate 20 to 30% more traffic during a noon peak. However, if you look at noon traffic on the adjacent street, it's a lot lower. So even if you generated a few more trips for the land use, the side street traffic is a lot less. So you wouldn't have as much of an issue getting in and out because you don't have as much delay on the main line adjacent to the road. So it's actually would be like a net negative in terms of overall traffic just because there's less traffic using the adjacent street. And yep, go ahead.
For 1 second, when you mentioned that idea of that, turnover sit down restaurant and the impact on the trip generation, you said it could increase by 20 trips. We're talking about 20 trips in what period of time?
So it would be about 20 in the AM, just because a fine dining restaurant generally doesn't generate a lot of traffic during the morning rush. And the PM peak would be 11 trips by comparison, and then the Saturday peak could be 20. So it's 20 or less essentially.
There's not 20 more trips, it's 20 trips.
20, it would be 20 trips in addition to what was anticipated. So instead of like for example, a high turnover or a fine dining restaurant during the PM peak estimated for this size 28 trips. If it was a high turnover sit down restaurant, this size would be 39 trips. So you're plus 11 from the 28. And then their comment about the access was really focusing on, if there's any accident patterns out there. We've requested the accident data from DOT. Sometimes it takes them a while to sort of collate that and redact some of the names and things. So we're waiting on them to provide that to us to see if there's any patterns out there. So I can't give you a definitive answer if there's types of crashes out there, but what I can say is it's not that this driveway is any different than any other driveway adjacent to a signalized intersection. That they're, all over the state, and during peak times, vehicles will, provide courtesy gaps to get in and out. It's not, the driveways aren't always blocked, when the light does go green, the traffic will dissipate and there will be gaps for vehicles to get out in and out. And again, we're not talking about a huge parking lot here. So we're not talking about all these trips trying to enter and exit this driveway. There, the site is going to rely on street parking to accommodate, a good portion of the traffic. So it's not like everyone's coming in and out of this driveway, and it's not any different than any other driveway along in the village adjacent to a traffic signal. It's not a new site. There was some, a land use on here before. The site is reducing the number of curb cuts that were there previously. So that's a positive access management principle that's being implemented here, where we're reducing the number of curb cuts. So when we do get that accident information back from the department, we'll break it down. We'll take a look. They've asked for, crash data east and west of the traffic signal, so we can look to see if there's any other driveways that have had similar issues. And once we have that data, we'll summarize it and provide that information to the department and for the board for your review. And then the last one was the one that we've already gone over about is there a potential access connection cross easement with the adjacent owner, which we've identified as just not really feasible due to the on-site grades.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think we're in a good spot to answer the DOT comments. We just didn't submit the letter in full because we do have that one sort of hanging chad, if you will, and we just didn't want to submit a letter that just didn't have all the responses. But from our opinion is that right now the conclusions of the traffic assessment to the trip generation, the parking assessment wouldn't change our recommendations based on the DOT comments. But we can't say that with 100% definitive statement until we see those accidents. And so again, we'll process those and provide that information when they come in.
One other question I had was around left turn exit from the hotel, and whether your data has, or your experience has any impression on whether that's something we should, that it would make sense to advocate to maybe eliminate through signage, or require as either a hotel policy or a DOT policy and recommendation.
I mean, if there was if this site had another access point, I would, I would say that's, a definite possibility. What you could do is, provide allow full access, as it starts to operate. If there's really a real issue that is identified, after it opens 2 years later, and you're starting to get some right angle crashes or something, maybe you can go to a restricted left turns for a time of day, an incremental type solution, rather than just say off the bat without having any real data to suggest that it could be an issue, to say let's restrict turns. You could revisit it in the future and say, yes, we do have an issue, let's revisit this, and maybe put up a sign. Maybe that's a sign that only restricts it for certain times a day, maybe. And then if you still have an issue, then you restrict it completely. So again, since there's only one point of access in and out, it's tough to have everyone make us, use the adjacent network to sort of navigate to make the, the right in or right out, if that's the way you're going. So that would be our position on that.
And your description of potentially like monitoring it and waiting for some accidents and then maybe potentially making a change after those occur, you're talking about left turn in, or you're talking about left turn out, or both?
I would say for the left turn out would be probably the most problematic of any move, just because there's 2 points of conflict. You're looking left and right. Generally, the left turn in, you're going to get, even if during peak times, you're going to get someone, if there's a red light, we've all been there, and you want to make a left turn into a driveway, someone will generally stop and allow you to make the left turn in, and you're not really opposing any traffic, so it's not really an issue. So I don't see the left turn being as much of an issue. I really don't see the left turn out being an issue either. But I guess that's, something that you could consider. But I think to restrict it without any real data to suggest that it's an issue, I think it's a little overkill.
Well, one source of data is that there are several other businesses on Main Street that do it. And they must have a rationale, busy businesses like Ulster Savings, for example. So there must be some rationale for the fact that it's not particularly easy to make a left turn when you're likely to have traffic stopped at the light, lined up at the light, and then needing to ask for that courtesy opening while also making sure you can make the left from safely with someone coming from that direction and exiting a restaurant across the street and exiting a street across the street. I actually think there's a lot of evidence that it might be a safe thing to restrict.
Now, does the bank have another means of access in and out?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that would be the difference.
You could leave it by heading to the street, yeah. But I mean, you're referring to it as I think you're thinking of, but it would be inconvenient. And I think I'd probably agree that it would be a little inconvenient, but I also believe that it would be a pretty important consideration for safety of leaving that hotel.
And I guess that's the other reason why we're requesting the accidents, to see if there is an issue, at other driveways. That will tell the story rather than, us speculating that there's an issue. The proof would be, we requested 10 years of data. So we're going to go back 10 years to see what sort of issues there are. And, if there's a pattern, it'll be pretty evident.
We just received all this information. I don't think we've sent it back to our traffic engineer yet, so we could send it with some questions like that to our traffic consultant.
Yeah, well, we haven't done our submittal to the DOT yet, but that would, if you want to do that, I would wait for that.
Thanks.
And then with regard to the comments about the site plan, I guess you are already planning on addressing these with like the new sidewalk to meet ADA standards and only one curb cut. And you're also gonna send them a driveway profile, I guess, or a driveway section.
Yeah, I didn't mention those because those are
yeah
fairly simple, but yeah, we're gonna do all that. Yeah.
Okay, so just waiting on the accident data for final recommendations, basically. That makes sense. Is there anything else about traffic that we need to discuss? Traffic or parking? Okay.
Oh, I had one point, please. Around the parking consideration, given the amount of public comment we've seen concerned with the addition of the required number of on-street parking in order to satisfy the hotel and the restaurant and employees, of course. I'm wondering if there's any kind of like operating procedure that could be a consideration of the approval that would, for example, require employees to park off-site, where they could be directed to park in a location that would not require would reduce the requirement for additional street parking for hotel guests or restaurant attendees, or even just a simple operating procedure where you're providing information about how to find street parking when you arrive at the hotel or restaurant. I think that we heard a fair amount of public comment about their concern. I think I honestly, and I do live on the block. I honestly think that maybe the public concern might be bigger than the real issue, but it's not non-existent either. It's challenging to park there. There's a lot of streets that can't accommodate emergency vehicles when people are parked on both sides. And I would just be interested in if it's allowable to say you can require street parking, whether we could consider requiring some considerations as to the way that the facility operates that would try to minimize that impact on neighborhood.
What would that be, you think?
Well, for example, identify a location for employee parking, and then that would eliminate, 5 or 6 people that need to park in the neighborhood when they're on site. Or another would be hotel guests receive information about how to identify street parking if there's not available spots. We also, if you wanted to allay our concerns about it, the other hotel overlaid some occupancy standards on their parking demand to show that actually you only need about 60% of what we require everyone to need. And maybe that would help ease the community's concern about the number of cars that are going to be looking for street parking. So those are some examples of things that would just help, just address the concerns.
Any thoughts on that, Mark?
Well, I mean, I guess that's more of a site operations question. I mean, it really has nothing to do with numbers of parking. I mean, I guess if you ask the employees to park off site, I guess it doesn't change the number of parking spaces that you need. It's just where are the ones that are more convenient for your employees versus your guests. So like our parking assessment was pretty conservative in that it didn't really take into account any sort of a multi-use credit, if you will, meaning, you're going to have some of the people that are going to the hotel that are going to go to the restaurant and they're not going to drive. So it didn't take that into account. So, our numbers are likely inflated a little bit, and you may also get people that live nearby. They're going to walk and not drive. So again, generally the parking assessments are typically conservative, but, we do that on purpose because we don't want to come up short. But in terms of where you want to park the employees, that's really not a traffic question. That's more, I would say, a site operations issue.
Well, it's a site operations issue that we could require in our approval. Not saying that we will, but I'm just trying to come up with some ideas because we had everybody here saying, how are these 14 cars going to park in our community every time that place is full? And we're proxy for the community's concerns, so that's why I'm sharing.
I think people are worried about another main course opening right there, and clearly that's not what this project is. It's not really comparable in the number of trips that it's going to generate. Also, I think it being on the other side of the road, you're just going to have many fewer people trying to park on Mill Rock. I think it's more likely that they'll park
on Main Street,
along Main Street or Chestnut or Center Street there. Doesn't seem to me like they would be going way down.
most likely there'll be parking in the plaza next door as well. Just because.
But that's never been introduced as part of the plan, so we're not allowed to consider that.
Yeah.
And I wish that were part of the plan, because then we'd say they're all gonna park there, it's always empty, you know? But you'd have to provide some sort of a agreement to say that that's actually your secondary parking, and that would be great, but we haven't been able to consider that. Has that been a consideration with that landlord?
It has, they're not really interested. We've spoken about it. They didn't show any interest. I could possibly revisit it, but I just don't see them budging. We may be able to come up with some type of operations agreement for employees, but like Mark was stating, that the spaces around the area will be used, whether it's our employees or a visitor or a potential customer, or
unless the employee parking was like the next.
Unless we can use, maybe the employees would be able to utilize the middle school parking lot on the weekends or something like that. We'd be fine with that, as so long as, you know, the village and the town would be fine with that as well. It's not being utilized over the weekends other than events that they may have.
if we feel like I've explored it sufficiently and everybody feels okay about that aspect of it, I'm okay to move forward, but I want to make sure I've aired as many ideas and
Yeah.
and possibilities as possible.
Yeah, we don't want to jam up that section either, because we don't want people to be like, it's impossible to get into that place.
Um. Yeah, thanks for bringing those ideas up. I don't know if I feel the need to like require a employee parking plan right now, but.
And I do
Certainly.
appreciate what Mark said about the conservatism of these estimates. That I
Yeah,
absolutely agree.
Yeah.
But that's why we're feeling comfortable with the way it is, because you'll probably only need the ones on site most
Yeah.
of the time. But plan says you'll need 14 more, and that's
Yeah.
where the public reacts and says, where are you gonna put those 14?
Absolutely.
And 14 might be the only number, but.
Right.
Thanks.
So the other thing I just wanted to discuss with the board was the hours of operation, roof deck, which have now been provided. Does that seem like a reasonable cutoff to kind of reduce the impact on the surrounding area, neighbors?
What are the morning hours?
7 a.m. to 11 p.m. And I assume like there will be, it's not going to be like live concerts up there. It's
No.
just going to be soft amplified.
Not set in stone yet. We don't plan on having a bar on the roof. We just plan on having service from our restaurant on the ground level available
So
up
you could
there.
bring your own wine to.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're not gonna have a bartender on you.
That's undecided for right now.
Are you gonna be running it or are you planning to sell it?
We plan on running it.
I'm curious, the county recommended, it says transparent options that provide views that are set back from the roof's edge to serve the needs of the residents and the applicant. I don't know what they mean by that. It says, it's under advisory comments right under the required modifications about the roof. Transparent options that provide views that are set back from the roof's edge. I'm imagining some kind of plexiglass. I don't know. I'm not really sure what they are. But
No, we don't plan on having any type of plexiglass up there like
well,
that.
they're asking you to do something. If they're asking you to put up a transparent option, I don't know what that.
Well, they have this 42-inch
Yeah,
wall
we
that
have
runs
a-
around. Are they
yeah.
asking for that to be see-through?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I see it here and those are the words, transparent options. I don't know. Provide views that are set back from the roof's edge. You'd think that was that.
Yeah, so
that was
that's our
one-
parapet wall that we have.
Yeah.
And
that
we're
is
set
set
back
back, yeah.
36 inches. So there's like this is the roof, then there's a parapet wall. It's raised
42-inch.
42 inches, and then there's about 36 inches from where the patio would be to the wall. So it would set back any activity from the
It is set
perimeter.
back and-
Yeah, from the perimeter of all the,
There, it's transparent. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. I
yeah,
don't
so
know.
maybe they meant transparent view, like you could see everything going on there, just set back.
Is the roof gonna be just for customers of the hotel? or
No,
also-
it's gonna be for,
So it'll be.
the
open for
village,
you,
the
for them, so
town,
anybody
yeah.
can Walk up there, check it out.
Yep.
Between 7 and 11.
yes. Yeah. We hope.
So there's gonna be like furniture up there, there's gonna be.
Yeah, like seating and maybe some furniture, like outdoor wicker furniture possibly.
So
some-
anybody could just stroll up there and hang out.
Yeah, we want patrons of the building to
Right.
go up there, so,
Right, people who are
patrons
eating
of
there,
the-
people who are
yeah,
sleeping there,
yeah,
seeing people there.
yeah, we don't want, like, people to just randomly walk up
Right,
and,
but I was
and
just
not
curious if-
patronize
if they're gonna
within
need
the
like a key
location.
fob to get up to the roof
Um,
deck.
we haven't gone that far yet in operations wise, but it could be considered.
There's a garden up there too.
I know it's in the material, forgive me, but the capacity of the roof deck?
I think it's capped at, should have it somewhere. How many people is that, like 40 something?
That's a question for.
So potentially like somebody could get married on the roof.
Yes. We hope they do. I'm not sure of the exact number right now. I believe it's,
That's important to make sure we have.
I think it's,
That's another.
I'm thinking like 42 people is, in my head for some reason. I'm not sure the exact number though.
So will there be facilities on the roof, like bathrooms and stuff like that?
We don't have a bathroom or any type of
No, this is
facility on the
floor
roof.
plan here. The roof deck, garden, seating, parapet wall, and the mechanical equipment. That's the. roof. And then this is the wall.
So,
This
so
is the
will you
wall.
be able to like walk through the restaurant and get up to the roof, or is that gonna come from the lobby?
You'll walk through the lobby
Wow.
and be able to take an elevator or a stairwell up.
You go to the restaurant, you have to go through the lobby, or does the restaurant gonna have its own entry?
It has a dual entryway, one in the front on
And
Main
also through
Street
the lobby?
and also through the lobby.
If you could just confirm that the occupancy of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I wrote those down.
Is Rick Alfondre?
That's okay, it's not immediate, we just wanna make sure it's answered.
Yeah. We have it on one of the plans. Because that, I think, the fire chief has to
Yeah,
configure that.
and that's different than seating capacity. We'll find out.
I think you guys have to do a calculation for the total area. And then they can let us know the exact number. It's just, yeah.
So one of the other comments on from the Ulster County Planning Board was about sustainability. Can you talk about buildings, sustainability features again?
I thought that Sam did a response on that, like a written
Oh,
narrative.
I didn't see that.
No,
Is there a reason why there are no solar panels?
So there's not really. With the roof deck, there would be pretty good,
There we have
Sustainability.
some-
but there aren't.
They
yeah, it's in,
they're not trying. They didn't make any effort to put solar panels. They made it, designed a building without them.
I don't think solar panels would look right on this style building, a brick building like this.
so he did do a response to that comment.
I see it.
What's the
Yeah.
date? I just forwarded.
No fossil fuels. Air source heat pumps. So it'll be all electric,
Oh, it's all heat pumps.
yeah. That exceeds current R value requirements, the building for installation. I mean, neither of them can make it. I know that that's kind of what they specialize in, is efficient buildings. But he
Okay.
does describe it.
And so where will those mechanicals be? Like where are the heat pumps gonna be located?
Mechanicals, for the most part, we have on the rooftop.
Yeah, there's mechanical equipment on the roof.
Like-
Heat pumps will be on the roof.
In the structure at the back is like a stairwell. It wouldn't be inside that. It would be
On top.
just like along the roof deck. There's
like a whole area for it.
Oh, okay,
It'll be fenced in. Yeah,
I see, okay.
well.
I just want to make sure
like
that
walled
it's
in.
going to be
Not
not
hanging on the
visible.
side.
It's not gonna be
from-
visible
yeah.
for
I think that's the
anybody.
nice part with a flat roof. For this, it can do that. You got lots more architectural questions for me? Neither architect here.
Some of the rooms have balconies. What percentage of the rooms do have the balconies?
All of them except for the first floor. So the first floor has 2 rooms. And they just have like little patio areas to compensate for the lack of balcony.
Yeah, so this back is just gonna be a hallway, and then all the rooms will be located on west side.
Do we have a front picture? I can show Amy.
Right. Well, those were all the questions I had about the Ulster County and the team comment. Then other issues we wanted to bring up.
I had some questions about lighting. You guys want to talk about your lighting plan?
As far as,
Exterior lighting, night lighting? Are you gonna use timers? Are the lights gonna go out at 11 o'clock on the roof? Like, what's the plan for the lights?
yeah, the lights will go out at 11 o'clock on the roof and exterior, like along the parking lot. I think they have a lighting plan in there. Yeah, so.
There's the light. Shielded,
I was just curious about the timers and stuff.
16-foot high poles. The timer, I think that's something that we can specify. I don't know that it could gotten to that level yet, but we can put those kind of restrictions on.
It's really important to think about that because I don't think you need the whole thing lit up all night normally.
Yep. Maybe a motion after that, I'm sure somebody wants to go out.
Yeah, I think that's a good
We want it
suggestion.
to be safe for people coming back to the hotel late at night.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions right now, I guess then, we can forward the new stuff to GTS Provident and Dennis Larios.
Well, unless you want us to wait.
No, I think if you authorize it, we'll send, because we're almost ready to submit to the DOT and then we'll send it to the village.
Okay,
Just to make sure we're not duplicating.
And I think then at our next meeting, we can complete the EAF part 2. I think that's gonna be the next step. It's looking like we're almost there.
Right.
See the light at the end of the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
All right.
Is it too much to ask for a resolution possibly right that night for site plan or?
I don't see how we can do that.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
and to ask.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Would you consider, maybe making one of the rooms a provision of housing for an employee? I feel like that takes care of a lot of issues, transportation. The provision of.
We may consider it.
housing. It's a really good idea. I mean, it's also sort of in community character in a way, because that's what the Indian restaurant, they provide housing on top, and then they're gonna
We can't commit fully to that, but we can,
I think it's definitely worth thinking about, because then you're actually providing someone, a local person with a local job, with a local place to live.
yeah. Talk about it and think about it.
All right.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Next, we have PB 22-11, 137 North Chestnut Street. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I actually made, that was my mistake. I was reading the agenda wrong. Next, we have 22-10, 11 Water Street.
We added that to the agenda and
Yeah,
so it's. That's what it is.
yeah, no, not your fault.
Good evening.
Good evening, Artie. That's the Artie. Hello. See you again.
Where would you guys like to start?
Yeah, well, let me pull up the site plan here. Yeah, great. That for us to look at. Now, there was a version that I digital copy that had like a pedestrian.
That was not submitted officially, it was sent just
Oh, okay.
say we added one thing. That was officially submitted. The only change is that, which,
But is what we talked about when we were on site was to bring this painted area sidewalk all the way along the front, which we had every intention to do.
sure, I have. Here. So that's the official submission, this is the update on the single page.
And since we're last in front of the board, can you just talk about any other changes that have been made to the site plan?
Yeah. First, the sidewalk was requested by the planning board. It is now shown with more accuracy, so it's actually 5 feet wide all the way down. You can see it.
Right here.
Yeah. It cannot be ADA accessible. The road is too steep. And we can't make it at a different, we have to follow the road. It's just not feasible. We provide a stairway now right there to access the property so that we don't do any changes to that property other than the little path. We're not digging into it. We're not making any changes.
This is the blue line is the property line. So our stairs stop at the edge of it. And then there's a path that leads to the rail trail.
a landscaping plan was added also to the set. And it'll say what. Yeah.
Landscaping plan. Landscaping plan.
We've also added, or we've updated the traffic control and signage plan. So if you go to the last page of the set,
We could, unless you want to hang on to this for, you want to take a look at this for a second?
Sure.
So this area is that vegetation that we were talking about. And, Ryan and I are, if these plants were damaged in any way, we would just replace them if an emergency vehicle rolled over them and crushed them. So that's something that we're willing to put in writing so that we're not gonna hold anybody liable for that.
Pretty typical, I think, that you have to maintain them as proposed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these landscaped areas over here are, how tall would those
I mean,
be? Like,
the sight line, and I think Frank's with us tonight. He can speak to that as well, but the sight line is 42 inches high.
right.
From this area, and this area. But this area is green screening that would actually block a lot of the parking and the visual of when cars are coming down the hill.
With the right turn visibility out of which are the egress driveways?
Egress driveway and egress driveway.
So the egress from the north driveway has full sight lines to the
Oncoming traffic, absolutely. Yeah.
stop sign also, but I believe it's the final page for signage. That's what you're looking for?
I was actually looking for the the arrows going in and out.
Oh, that's on the front.
That's on the front page. Yeah, so no, this is just in. And these are in and out. This one's in and out. And I believe
That one's only out
only
except
out.
for trash truck.
Separate trash truck, right? As part of our landscaping plan, we've hired our arborist, our tree doctor that has all these plans. I'm sorry, all the trees on a list within this narrative that we have every intention to. We have a plan also in this narrative that goes, well, not the printed one, but the one that was on. I updated it as of today, and he has a plan to treat these trees and get them to a good place. He's actually on our payroll in Woodstock as well.
Okay.
There are 20 existing trees here, and that's also in his plan. So I can easily send that to Autumn so you can see it. Yeah, the tree shade commission we met with at one point and discussed all of them as well.
So in terms of deliveries, is there going to be a maximum size truck that you can accommodate?
Yes.
So should we let Frank take that question? Is he on mute?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all remote tonight. Sorry for the inconvenience. So since the last time we met, DTS Provident has completed a review of those materials. We're in receipt of their letter. We did do a truck turning analysis that looked at a SU vehicle, a single unit box truck. It is not our intent to have any large tractor trailers trying to get onto this site. That's not part of the operations plan. So we've developed the truck turning exhibits to reference a single unit box truck, which is, commensurate to, like a Pepsi truck or a large bread truck, or, if there's needs to be laundry taken to and from the facility for whatever reason, it'd be trucks like that, but there would not be a semi tractor trailer coming onto this property. So the analysis was done that way, and obviously the flow of the site dictates the way a vehicle would enter. And given the uniqueness of the intersection that we're immediately adjacent to, there's a specific path of travel that we envision. So it was developed based on a realistic approach and departure route for these vehicles. We're not trying to have vehicles make strange, awkward, difficult turning maneuvers at the intersection. So the idea would be they'd make a right in, they'd pull up along the building frontage, and then exit at the south end of the property. We obviously have a DTS Providence review letter. There's a number of things that we still need to work out with them. But we did address a good portion of their comments. The on-site circulation seems to be really the main thing that we need to work through with DTS Provident. I think there's some general questions about some of the parking spaces, the amount of backup area being afforded to those locations. So something that we're working on with Solomon's team to try to make that a little bit better. If there's any further questions, I'm happy to talk through it. I don't want to belabor if you're already looking at the turning templates there.
Yeah, I guess I still don't quite understand if a truck is pulling in and their cars parked all along the front of the building, where does the truck go? Where does it unload? And then how do those cars pull out?
We don't have the turning templates in front of us here. Were those turning templates submitted?
They were.
Okay.
I can try to pull them up and share my screen if that would be helpful. Just let me know.
We submitted this a while back, right, Frank? I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, I mean, Carlito Holt reviewed it, so he was able to get it.
Somewhere.
I could bring up electronic version of it and share my screen if that's helpful.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Just bear with me one moment.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen now. Does everybody see this screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So in an effort to reduce file size, we went just black and white. So the hotel is essentially this white area here. North is to the right. And you can see this is our SU40 vehicle down here. That's a single unit vehicle, 40 feet in length from nose to tail. So that's the largest single unit truck that's on the road normally, without any special permit, for example. So to answer, I believe it was the chairman who asked the question about what happens when the trucks come. Well, there's an operations plan in place. It behooves no one to have operations occurring during peak hours when people are arriving and departing from the facility. So it's in my estimation, and I think the project teams, correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, but truck deliveries, truck operations would be limited to off-peak hours. So if a truck was on the property and happened to block in for a brief moment a few vehicles, it would be doing so when it's unlikely that that vehicle would need to depart. If that person did need to depart, there's that human interaction where, hey, can you move up? Can you move back? And that would sort itself out. But the idea is to do it in a way during the day when the likelihood of that friction occurring is at its lowest point. The site is limited. We don't have a designated loading zone. So what we're doing is using the end of the site for those brief deliveries throughout the week. Jesse, I don't know if you have an idea of how many you're projecting per week, but this is not I would imagine it's not an everyday occurrence.
No, it's probably in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 per week.
Per week, right? So, it's a fairly infrequent need, but having the vehicle exit at the south end is necessary so that it can get back to the intersection and make the turns at the intersection that are feasible. We're trying to avoid a difficult turn or a sharp turn, for example, a turn like this. So that's kind of high level for the SU40 vehicle. I'll continue on here. This is the exiting maneuver. And then this is an exhibit showing some potential passenger vehicle maneuvers on the site. So we don't show every single possible parking space being accessed. We're showing a sampling of vehicles making maneuvers into and out of the parking spaces. What I will say is that the analysis that we use, and you heard it earlier from my colleague Mark about being conservative. The car that you're seeing on this plan is larger than a Cadillac Escalade. We do that purposely to show that the site can generally be traversed by what is usually the largest SUV that you commonly see on the road. So this vehicle is 19 feet long by 7 feet wide, which is a very, very, very large vehicle. So if you see some curbs being hopped over or very close, it's because the analysis is so conservative. So I just want to point that out. I do believe that DTS's letter asked for some additional iterations of the turning maneuvers, so we're going to have to provide a supplemental response with some additional turning maneuvers, and we're happy to do that.
Why is that an advantage not to have a designated loading site?
Well,
I mean, why?
They just need every single parking.
I know, but it could be a parking spot and loading thing. And then if there's a car there, they can't unload. I mean, the parking could be at night and you could say, maybe you could park here at night, but that these spots have to be open from 9 a.m. to noon or whatever you think is going to be the time when we're going to be doing loading and unloading. Because if you don't have a designated unloading thing, I mean, it could be anywhere on the site. I don't really understand it. They could just come in there with their stuff and.
In my experience with, running restaurants and the hotels, how
the loading and the unloading of any sort of delivery that a hotel like this will be under 5 minutes. It will come in, it will unload, it will drop it off in the hallway and the doors that are accessible right off of the exterior of the building, and they leave. This is, you know, but it's not anything that they are dropping off. We're not running a full service, large restaurant. We're doing all of our laundry probably in-house. What we're talking about loading and unloading is more like UPS packages coming in for Amazon.com. They're in, they drop their bags and they leave. They're on their own schedule, moving very quickly. If any of our customers get blocked in for a moment's time, you know, that's an operational issue that we'll have to deal with our customer and keep them satisfied, but I've never had it be a problem before, and I don't really foresee it being an issue here either.
Okay. So.
Yeah, and again, just to, you know, emphasize that a little bit more, what's commonly used by Amazon right now is a fraction of the size of the vehicle we showed on that trucking turning template. They're nowhere near 40 feet in length. What Amazon's running currently, as well as UPS and FedEx. So again, idea is to be as conservative as we can. There probably will be a box truck at some point, but I think what Ryan's explaining is that day to day, what you're seeing mostly is smaller, smaller box trucks and vans.
And to be more specific too, we don't use companies like Cisco or US Foods or those large 18-wheeler freights that you say. We do not use those at all. Any sort of, and you say beer trucks as well. I mean, you know, the bar program hasn't been completely defined yet, but it's going to be like microgroups. I mean, it's more local providers of such, which in my experience too, have been dropped off with smaller, less than 40-foot trucks. And a lot of the times in like Sprinter vans and smaller commercial vehicles, nothing large, no, even the spirits distributors that come into Woodstock are in cube trucks. You know, they don't come down.
So this is already your experience with the deliveries that you get in Woodstock.
Oh,
You don't have any large trucks coming over there.
Not for our business currently. No, not in the hotel business, not at all. And even I did operate a small
Do you
restaurant.
have the restaurant in Woodstock on premises?
No, on the hotel? No, we do not. We do not. We have a coffee kind of lounge, but not a full service restaurant. But I do own a full service restaurant, and we don't get that either because we don't use the big distributors.
I understand.
Yeah.
Are there any other regarding parking or traffic flow that we discussed right now?
I had something that I wanted to explore, and we might need some Emily's advice on it, but you know, I think we would all agree that, well, I want to assume that I have the observation that there is a lot of parking on the site, and it's clearly a packed program in the plan and driven so much by the parking requirement. And we've gotten some data, and I think it's in that more recent memo that you shared. And we've gotten other data, I think, where I don't remember where I saw other occupancy averages, maybe in the narrative that you got as well. And we even have some data that refers to specifically number of guest cars, number of employee cars based on occupancy, even at levels of 90% or 89% occupancy. And I know that the traffic and parking engineering is always done in these really conservative ways. So therefore, we're requiring the number of parking spots we're requiring, including I think the biggest thorn, at least in my side, are those two that interfere with you to able to have a consistent walkway. I just saw what it looks like when the Escalade tries to back in and out of those. And so my question is, do we want to introduce a conversation where the planning board is thinking about some discretion on maximum required parking spaces? Either because there's a lot of evidence that says that we're over requiring, and that over requirement is making the site plan less appealing in two different ways, in terms of pedestrian usage, park, access and vehicle maneuvering. And because it looks as though it's highly unlikely that the site would ever use the number of spots that are being required. If I'm interpreting this data, and maybe we would even request more, I think during our conversation that day, I had said, you know, could we see more occupancy information? And so one question is like, is that within our discretion? I know there have been examples where we've land banked parking deficits and said, can you design the site without those two spots, but make them available if we ever had to require them after a period of counts? But I mean, I think, you know, the spirit of what we're trying to do in this village generally is not to, you know, pave the world with parking that is left empty. And I think we have a two-space conversation that should be available to this board. And I think I'd love to have us consider that.
I mean, we're open to it.
I think I was talking
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
I agree, Rich. I would love to see there be a little more flexibility in the parking requirements.
Are you guys gonna be tough about your parking spots? Like if passerbyers want to park there just because they want to walk around and go shopping, you're gonna tell them
So-
to get out?
No, probably not. I mean, I think you know, we're gonna monitor it. You know, we'll definitely be monitoring it by camera, and you know, there'll be somebody stationed at the door and we'll be able to track some of it. But my feeling is, based on this study of the movement of people coming on and off the property, if you look at that study, you'll see an other column. And there are others that just come and go. So and it's still within our, it's still within our required amount of spaces that we have.
Yeah, you know, what we've seen too, like when we first opened up the hotel in Woodstock, there was people that were coming on property, and after a few times of understanding what the property was, and it happened not to be generally tourism that was coming in. It was more, you know, people that lived in the community that were coming onto the property. But then they figured out that it's a hotel, and they stopped doing it. Another thing that we could consider doing, and I was down in Asheville, North Carolina this past weekend at a hotel that was a similar situation with parking was a part of their site plan, where everyone got a parking ticket essentially that sat in the window, identifying them as someone that could park on site. And it was there through the time of my stay. I always had it in the window, and it worked very well. You know, it allowed, you know, I watched at one point one of the employees of the hotel kind of observing the parking lot and walking through and making notes on who was parking there and who wasn't. I think at the time, everyone that was parking there was supposed to be there, because I didn't see him make a fuss. But that's something that's part of our operation that we'll handle, and we've done it in the past.
So in the code, there's a provision for combined uses, and it says if there's a combination of uses, you should add you know, it should be the sum of the number of spaces, unless it can be demonstrated that staggered hours of use with permanent modification. So I think you have spaces dedicated for the restaurant use, is that right?
There's three.
So if you
Three
wanted
spaces.
to make an argument that those could overlap with the hotel spaces, you know, they don't need to be additive. You could.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely in agreement that I would say the majority of anyone using the facilities for food and drink are hotel guests who are already dedicated spaces. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So what if we took the two spots out? Save the spots like in that envelope thing for later, if we decide we need them, and you guys agreed to that, like a year from now, if there's an issue, we could say something to you about it. And maybe, just an idea, we could use those two spots as a loading zone.
Well, what about this loading area right here?
Then
Is
the
that-
cars were in.
Well, here's the thing. So this this is also gonna be employee parking. So these people are more likely to be here while loading and unloading is going on. So I'm not really concerned about, yeah, them, right. So that this way that, you know, I don't think that'll interfere with their movement as much.
But I would be willing to be behind that, taking the
Yeah.
spots out and doing that.
Yeah, and I'm not certain that if you were to look at a plan that excludes those 2 spots or maybe 3 spots, I'm not certain that it would be a plan that could be reverted back to including them again if we would have to decide, is this a request to land bank them and make it a plan that could revert, or is this just a consideration of reducing the number of required spots for the reasons that Emily mentioned and other evidence we have around, 2 couples come to stay in a hotel, there's 1 car. I think this data, I'm pretty okay at data, and I'm not sure I'm interpreting this right,
Okay,
but, and it's a very small snapshot, it's a very small,
it's definitely
data sample,
3 days of activity though.
Yeah.
And Saturday being,
But I don't know if anyone else has seen this and get a sense of what the gap we're talking about between the requirement and the usage.
well, the open spaces are at the end of that data, and you can see how many spaces are open
Right.
on site.
So if I use an example of on a Thursday evening in October, which I would assume is a popular time of year to visit, this is Woodstock? This hotel?
Yes.
The occupancy of the hotel is at 89%. So how many rooms are in that hotel?
23.
So you have a couple empty rooms, but it's pretty much full.
Right,
And you have only 11 guest cars
correct.
when there are 20 rooms occupied. And then you have a couple employee cars and a couple people that snuck on the premise and parked. And so you had 15 total cars and 10 open parking spots
At 6:30.
at
Right.
6:30 in the evening when the place is 90% full.
And the hotel in Woodstock isn't accessible with a bus a block away. We have a lot of tourists coming on the bus and walking to the destination or taking their bikes. We even have tourists taking their bikes from the train to Poughkeepsie and coming to New Paltz on the bicycles.
We actually do have a bus stop that's very close. Oh, yeah, it's very close to the hotel. Yes, they do. Trailways, yeah. In fact, I think it's the same. It's on, it's one of the stops, yeah.
So, and I recognize also that we would be introducing a precedent here of this consideration, because we're so often just doing that calculated requirement for parking. But I just don't think it's in line with what we're trying to accomplish as a village. And I really want to encourage us to.
And we also talked about directing customers to other parking, like the Gardens of Nutrition parking lot and different places where they can park their car if they're going to be out in town during the day. You can park over here if you want to go to historic Huguenot Street and you don't want to walk.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but you brought up a point in our communication that all guests get between confirmation emails and the terms and conditions of the hotels. There's a section that's specific to parking on the property, and it plainly states that it's 1 parking space per unit of people. If there is a second car that is coming that they need to be reaching out to us by phone or through email to let us know that there's a second car, and if we can accommodate it based on the given night, we can, or if not, we direct them to the municipal parking within the walking distance of in Woodstock, where there are 2 lots.
And to your point, Amy, so we have where you see the column car movement, that's movement of cars on and off the property between the hours, say of, 3:38 on a Tuesday and 6:31. There were 3 cars that moved. Okay, so that was, so that those people may have gone off the property and may have gone to dinner because they didn't want to walk into town, but I think the idea was to show that not a lot of these cars are moving. Most of those people are walking and not adding to the, traffic in town.
The walkability of the concept.
Right.
That's really what we're after.
I think the board is kind of all in agreement that it would be nice to have fewer parking spots on this site, but we're limited by the code from what we understand to maybe we could eliminate 3 spots. And I'm in full support of doing that. And I really think that adding a little more landscaping, shielding the building would really improve the site. Maybe making that loading area like a little, work a little better. I think that's up to your traffic engineers to decide. But
Would it be likely that this walkway would just continue in an arc as opposed to be
I
interrupted?
mean, it could, if what you're, it could, and, that sidewalk, could be removed if we were having a problem with the parking, but I don't really see that happening. So when you talk about land banking, like if we had to put if we put a sidewalk here, and then all of this area on the other side of it was landscaped, if we felt that we're having a problem with parking, we can eliminate the landscaping in that area and then take out the sidewalk and put the 2 parking spaces back.
yeah, I think, that change alone would make a difference.
Once you put the sidewalk down, you're not gonna want to take it.
I mean, I'm not gonna want to take it out, but the reality is if it becomes a problem, we would take it out, to make this a, because when you talk about precedent, we don't want to be the reason why there's other problems.
If we were able to remove those 2 spots, you guys would be willing to sign something that says in 18 months, whatever. If we say that you're gonna have to have those spots, then you're gonna come back here and you have the spots.
Correct.
Okay. It's good to know.
No, those are solar panels. Yeah,
You couple solar panels there,
yeah, we have a few. Yeah.
so it's.
Well, do you want to talk about the
Living room.
environmental, standards or?
From the rendering, it looks interesting. I mean, it looks like grass, but I'm sure that's not what you're doing.
No, it's a lightweight mixed soil mixture with succulent plants called sedum. Yeah, so it's really cool. We have it at the hotel in Woodstock. We did it on 4 roofs, and it's very low maintenance, and it's a really nice aesthetic. And yeah, it's great. So I brought a sample of a material. This is a hardy board material. I don't know that this is going to be the color, but the reason why I took this material to show you was because it has the wood grain and it's a low maintenance material. I also brought a sample of the cedar and also a light. So this is the cedar sample. It shows as gray on the building, but that would be when this went to gray. Natural gray. It turns gray after some time.
We don't use any chemicals or, because we let that.
And then, I brought a sample, as we talked about the last time, of a light. And this is basically a downward light that would light pathways and landscaping.
I'm trying to find the pictures of the green roof and
Never find anything.
They put their website.
Okay.
Thank
I don't know.
Fully electric.
Mentioned that the heat pumps were, some of the heat pumps were gonna be on ground level over here.
Yeah, so-
And then there was some also going to be on the stairwell, on top of the stairwell.
On top of the stairwell, correct.
And will those be visible at all from the rail trail or other vantage points? Or will it be fully
So,
hidden by the parapet?
We have parapets on in here.
yeah, it'd be hidden by the, and
Yeah.
shield and screened by the parapet. And screened by the parapet.
Not gonna be like human activity on the roof at all.
No, absolutely not. I don't want them. I don't want people trampling my green roof, no thanks.
It's basically plants and solar panels.
Yeah.
The water will absorbed by the roof.
It is.
Better than what
You do need gutters. It is less taxing, on the storm drains because it holds a lot of that water.
There any other sustainability questions that the?
Solar panels. Some, oh, no, the awning, that awning, but I guess those are also gonna, the seating is gonna be on all the awnings too.
The seating will be on this. This is a standing seam roof. A standing seam metal roof. Oh, no, I was just showing you that this is a living roof. And then this is just a standing seam metal roof.
The solar panels.
This is a better picture of it.
Just where all this.
What's that?
Does it show the solar
The
panels?
solar panels are on, yeah, this strip here and then over here as well.
Okay, so there are still a couple outstanding issues that I think we talked about, including rail trail access. So that still needs to be authorized by the village in Walkill Valley Central.
So as of right now, we are on our property for access. Basically, somebody can walk up these stairs and then just walk onto the rail trail. What we're proposing is doing, I would say like an item number 4 type path that leads onto the rail trail. And then taking these tracks and putting them across the rail trail and doing some interpretive signage that, talks about the history of the building and the time that the building was in use as an industrial building.
Okay, but does that
Require us,
still-
yes, we still need to talk to them. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But no, that plan sounds good. Yes. And then there still needs to be a drainage study done, is that correct?
Yeah, we talked about waiting till the basic layout was worked out, but
Okay.
just to remind you that we will need to have that.
Yeah.
I think you guys are already working on it anyway, right?
Yeah, we've already updated all of the elevations based on the new layout that we have here. But the actual drainage study needs to be done. It's
Is
a
it
lot
in
of
here now or
engineering.
no? Okay.
The elevations are.
The elevations are, okay.
Not the drainage study.
And then I guess also once the plans are finalized, then the village will need to review any changes within their right of way. That also.
The road.
Right, and also the little stretch of
Sidewalk,
sidewalk
yeah.
that's going into
Okay.
their property.
So those things still can't be done quite yet. Got it.
And then the other right of way you're talking about is what you had said, Emily, the road right of way, the encroachment on your property line by the road. And is that something we've gotten? I know that was being looked at by the engineer, and I see Dennis Larios's memo doesn't reference that at all. is there any new information or input from the village DPW about the impact of that required right of way?
My understanding was that Dennis and Blue were both relatively happy with this layout, and once the layout is worked out, then the legal part of it can be addressed. But I guess I do want to just bring up that some of the things Dennis mentioned in his memo November 9th, like for instance, he suggested removing that vegetation in the along the road.
In the
frontage.
mountable curb.
Worked out now that it's back.
Well,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it was a suggestion, that's all,
Yeah.
right?
I sent Corey, our fire chief, the latest site plan with that, and I'm waiting to hear back from him if he thinks
Okay, great.
that's acceptable, and hopefully we can work something out with him that doesn't involve just pure pavement right there.
Yeah.
Great. I just wanted to make sure we closed the loop on that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one other item that came in the engineer's memo that may be related to those stormwater and drainage is the memo says the village experienced occasional overflows in the sanitary system fronting the property. Provision for backflow prevention should be included in the building sanitary design.
That's an engineering detail that once we have a working site, we can work with
Make sure
that.
that's it.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, well, I guess the question I have the board is if we think we're ready to schedule the public hearing, or if these changes with the possibly removing parking spaces big enough that we want to wait to see a new site plan before scheduling that.
My suggestion is that we would want to see the site plan with those changes, and we would want to have, I don't know if it's something that Frank would need to formalize, but something that explains in the narrative and some data, the rationale for why we are permitting a reduction in parking requirement.
Yeah, I think we need that.
And that would be something the public should have an opportunity to see before the public hearing.
Okay,
So is that based on the idea of like what we were talking before about people within the hotel using the facilities, already have parking?
I think that's the most like code-driven way to argue it, for sure. I think there's also like an experiential way to consider it, but I don't know if that's within our
And
purview.
the occupancy of certain times a
But
year.
it seems like there's the opportunity for discretion of at least 2, if not 3 spots, if we considered the idea that the majority of people staying or dining are going to be people staying. And then there's a supplemental argument that Frank could make with some of the available occupancy data you provided that says, and we have a lot of evidence over the history of operating a comparable property, that there's always between X and Y% of spots available, even at times where we're at 90% occupancy. And I think that's going to be the explanation to the community when they ask, how could you offer a place with less parking than it requires? You can never park on Water Street. And that will be the explanation, because you can't ever park there.
Sure.
And with a commitment to change it back if we need it, right?
Dash 44, Frank, that has
You know,
that.
and I might suggest that the 3 be maybe this one to open up some of your operating considerations and think about Amy's consideration about just, would this be a little easier to work here if there wasn't a spot there?
I mean, there could still
Buried in
be a
there.
spot here and like, we wouldn't necessarily need to use
Yeah, you
it.
chain it off.
Right,
Yeah.
I could,
But it could be the land bank spot and then
Sure.
those 2. And
Put an
then,
X through it.
yeah, or just put stripes through it and it could just, we could just extend it out to this area and that would work.
okay, so yeah, that sounds great to me. And in that case, I think that maybe at our next meeting, we could at least work on the EAF part 2, complete the EAF part 2, and schedule the public hearing at that time.
Well, it would be great if we got the public's input before we work through the AF part two.
I see.
I mean,
Okay.
I mean,
So-
is there a world where we submit the plan to you for review and maybe get on a call and not have to take up your time in a meeting? It's gotta be public, right?
well, December 5th, but just for a short period and then schedule the hearing at that point.
Sure, yeah, I'm certainly open to that. I think, you know,
If you could turn that around. pretty quickly.
We can turn it around.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, from my perspective, it's easy.
And whatever Frank might want to do to support the conversation.
Yeah,
And then we could do the EAF part two the same night as the hearing, you know, because we would have heard from the public.
okay, yeah, well, let's do that. We'll move forward with the December 5th meeting and get your public hearing scheduled at that point. I think for now, yeah.
I just want to ask you the same thing I asked the other.
about the workforce, yeah.
Providing an apartment for your manager.
Sure. So we're already working on that with 13 Water Street. And you know, we're actually we redesigned it and we're gonna turn it into a single bedroom.
13 Water Street being this house
Oh,
down
the
here.
house is right there.
Yep. And actually, we're also, we're putting a parking space on the other side of it, so that'll be an additional parking space for an employee as well. So that could actually kind of alleviate one of these parking spaces on the site.
Well, if it's on another site, it could have need an agreement to do it, but it could. Yeah, you could have what would that be called? That agreement between that property and the site.
Yeah, I don't think about that.
The only way to consider it is if it was formally documented and would travel with the property, you know.
Right, of the parking space itself. Sure.
Part of it would have been easy.
Right.
But if you wanted to agree to get the easement, that could be in it could be a condition of approval. And it could go with what Frank would create as the narrative, and it would create a further argument to say we've got too many parking spots and we want to reduce them by 3 or 4.
I think our objective on this was to be able to either use it for workforce housing temporarily, because in our experience, we do have one studio, a workforce house in Woodstock. And it's not, they don't stay long term. So they're some people stay and then they move on, they find another place, and then we have another, you know, person that took it over. In fact, that was a recent what's that? Yeah, another hire came in and stayed. So but we would like the flexibility on that. But that property is, you know, we see it as, you know, it'll be a place for us to stay when the construction is happening. So, you know, or even like when we're not staying there, it could be also for other construction people to stay there during that time. We have every intention of, you know, making it even better. And in fact, you know, I showed a diagram. I don't, you know, it took too much of the time up here, but we are going to be demoing as part of the plan, demoing this area in the front to bring the front back to its kind of original state. And in doing that, it's actually going to give us the ability to have even more vegetation there.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Glad to hear that that's going to be part of the housing. Wait. Is there anything else from the board? Any other questions you want to raise right now? Not, we will see you on December 5th. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time, and have a nice holiday. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving. See you in December.
Can you like 22-11?
Again. Sorry for the long meeting.
That's all right. We're all local except for Charlie, but he's here for the last item on the agenda too, so. All right, kids will be there. Absolutely. Nick Werner for Trail Link. Charles Gottlieb from Whiteman, Osterman and Hannah, our attorney.
Justin Dates with Collier's Engineering and Design.
Okay. So I guess the first thing, I just want to make sure there were no changes since we had you here last.
Correct, yeah, last meeting, we went over the EAF part 2, looking to talk about the draft neg deck. The only thing that we did provide another submission, but it was just some additional information and updated documents. One was, there was really one comment from Capital Environmental, which was a note regarding the wetlands, which was already on our plan, but there was one methodology statement that we added to that per their request. Everything else has been addressed with them. We did provide, and I had mentioned at that meeting about some photos that we had taken about to show the height of kind of where the building would be. As part of one of our ZBA applications, we had, or the applicant set up a lift to show where that 35-foot mark would be, which is the maximum building height for the zone. So we had those pictures that we just provided to the board for reference. And then we provide a couple other documents, update to the rail trail access agreement. Draft of that was provided. Also our special use narrative, which is really only tied to the rail trail connection itself. So that was provided to the board for reference. And then we also made mention the recreation fee. There was a waiver request that we had put in that submission as well.
So that so I guess I'd like to start out with talking about the special use permits. So you provided a narrative, a couple proposed special uses, is that correct?
I can clarify that. We provided the narrative to show that we are compliant with the special use permit requirements for the special use permit that we are seeking now, and that's for the connection to the rail trail. It also, generally talks about the project, because we can't just think that this is just a connection to the rail trail in a vacuum. I did speak with your council about special use permits that might be required for the commercial spaces and the office space, because those tenants are undecided at this point. And the applicant is okay with the language similar to what was used in Zero Place, outlining that, these particular uses would be okay. If a use comes in wasn't contemplated by this board, then that tenant would have to come back before you for a special use permit and demonstrate that they comply with the standards.
Okay. Understood, and so that you reviewed that.
Well, so we'll need you to tell us which uses you want.
So it was the exact same language that was in the Zero Place.
The ones that are not in this district.
Yeah.
There retail options there?
It was the limited retail use. And then the definition of a limited retail use excludes some things and includes some others. So if we had fallen within that limited retail use definition, that would have been one of the pre-authorized uses. for those spaces.
Maybe it was my understanding, maybe I was confusing one of the other building, but I was understanding that your use was going to be restricted toward professional services or and not retail, but it's not the case.
Not specifically restricted, no. I mean, our intention is to utilize it as office space, but we haven't confirmed that tenant yet.
So it would be the same approach and the same list, but we would still need to see it. We still need
Well, we
a
can,
narrative from you.
yeah, well, could you do a special use permit narrative going through the factors?
Or the
Or
same
the-
uses that are in zero place?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, great.
And then the other one on here, I don't think I brought up with Mr. Gottlieb yet, but I wasn't clear on the whether we need a special use permit for the first floor apartments. Are they considered accessible units?
They are all
Okay.
accessible units.
I wasn't sure if that was resolved before I got involved with this. So, yeah, the code says that a special use permit is needed unless they're accessible units. So we're good on that.
Okay, so that's resolved. And do we need to review the SV narrative for the rail trail, or did you already look at that?
If you want to, I think it's okay.
Okay. No, I'm fine with that then, and I think that's
before 9 o'clock.
Yes.
Next, I think we should talk about the rec fees. Now, there's pretty specific language in the code about when rec fees are required, so we're just gonna go kind of item by item. The first thing is whether there's a present or anticipated future need for park and recreational facilities based on projected population growth. I mean, I would
Yes.
argue that there's a need.
Yes, those people are gonna be
For
using parks and
recreation.
recreation.
Yep,
Yes.
okay. Second is whether the new residential units for this project will increase the demand on the village's recreation facilities, which would provide a proper case for requiring parkland or payment in lieu. Again, this is going to add, how many apartments?
51 units.
Okay, so going to be a significant number of additional residents living in the village. I would argue that it will
How many
increase demand.
residents do you anticipate between the 2-bedroom and the 1-bedroom and studio? What do you
I mean, I would say that a good number is probably about 70 occupants for a building this size with that unit count.
And you do anticipate children?
We have 1 and 2 bedrooms, so it would be limited children, I would think. Just because of what we have, we don't go into the 3-bedroom units, but there may be some. We can't restrict that, and say that there won't be, so.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that the rec fee comment you shared in the narrative, it explains that the residents and occupants of the building will be users of the existing recreational resources as well, which is part of the purpose of the recreation fee fund is maintenance as much as it is development of new resources. So I think
And
it's
one thing, though,
your statement actually justifies, I think, the board's position on it.
One thing we'd like to just kind of remind the board and put in front of the board is we plan to make a substantial investment in constructing a pedestrian bridge from our property to the rail trail that will be accessible by all residents, visitors, our tenants of the village. And that cost of that construction, we estimate to be somewhere between about $180,000 and $225,000 of an improvement that we're going to make that is a public benefit improvement. And that's why we're, also asking for a reduction or an elimination of the recreation fees. I think we calculated the number out, it's approximately $165,750 based on our unit size. And we're making a much more substantial investment in the community and providing this public access. It's part of what we've talked about with the public access easements and working with the land trust and the rail trail to bring this in. So it's not as if we're saying we don't want to, put up any money, we don't want to put aside any land. We also have designated green space on the property and picnic areas and places for everyone, again, to congregate and use. So in a sense, we feel we're contributing by doing what we're doing, and it might have a larger impact than just paying a fee for those, those rec fees.
Saying that if we charge you the rec fee, that you're not gonna build the bridge.
Well, it's not something we're looking at the moment, but we're also asking for consideration because we're already making those improvements.
It's actually an amenity for your building to give your tenants access to our recreation, the rail trail.
But we're also providing it to everyone.
Yeah.
It's the special building. I mean, it's a benefit to you to put the bridge there as well.
It is.
Also to the public, I think, which Nick was saying, because we did make provisions to get a pedestrian route from 32 all the way through the site back to this bridge. So
Right.
it's not solely for the use of our tenants, but we've made provisions to connect it.
I think it's important that we remind the board and also you all that the determination of whether of this board is just whether there's an anticipated future need and whether these units will increase the demand. And whether you have an adequate solution to that on site. And if we come up with those answers, I think that's the resolved conclusion of this board. And then if you wanted to make the argument to the village board that, look at what we're doing here, might
They
you, might
set
you?
the fee anyhow, so if they
Um,
decided to reduce it or increase it, it would be up to the village board.
That's right. So that was what I was going to say. So then that's a conversation you can continue with the village board, but our responsibility is just to walk through this logic and make the determination from this planning board. So I think that's what we should finish doing and move on.
Okay, well, there was just that last question of whether there's adequate park facilities located on the site. We do recognize you set aside some green space, but I don't think that those you could consider adequate recreational facility, park facilities for the size of the development. Same thing. I'm not 100% sure about that. But
Is it in place, pay for the fee?
A partial, they got some credit for what they provided on the site, then it's a partial.
So I think if I read the zero place resolution correct, they had about 6,200 square feet of grass area. And then they were also given a credit by this board for enhancing the streetscape, which this project also does.
By the village board.
That was in the planning board resolution.
yeah, I mean, I do think providing that rail trail access is a valuable valuable service, and I'm sympathetic to your request, but I don't think we could say as a board that would completely offset the need for a rec fee.
Do you think it would be valuable to share on the record that we recognize the value of that addition, that upgrade to the property and the access that it would provide? And it still is a conversation that goes to the village board.
Certainly,
but
yeah.
At least we could
that would
be on
be-
record to say that that's something that we recognize value in.
That would be my preference. Okay, yeah, I mean, if the board is all in agreement with that course of action, I'd like to get a motion and to how do I phrase this motion to
To
send this?
recommend to the village board.
Okay, motion to recommend to the village board that a rec fee would be required for 22-11. I mean, I think, in our in our communication with them, we can explain some of the logic behind our other considerations, but,
Is that your motion?
but yeah, that would be my motion.
I'll second it.
I would actually say if we could have further discussion,
Yeah, yeah.
I think the further I
Hold off on the.
I think
motion.
the further discussion of the resolution could be that the resolution includes that we determined by virtue of the criteria that we recommend a recreation fee, and that we want to acknowledge that there is some recreational resources being proposed on the site plan, and there is an upgrade that could be beneficial to the community in the form of the bridge to the rail trail. And then that could be if everyone agrees, that could be the resolution, and then that, of course, becomes the village board's consideration. But I think that's really our conclusion on this, that we want to honor that upgrade and that consideration.
That could be the motion or the resolution?
The resolution
Okay,
would include
yeah,
that point.
yeah, I agree that sounds good to me.
Want me to try to say it again? You got it, Zach?
I'll give it a shot. So if we could get a motion to send the village board a resolution that we feel that the rec fee is required. However, the bridge and other facilities do provide a substantial benefit to the community, and that should be recognized. And second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, okay, so moving on, I think I'd like to just take a look at the NBR standards quickly. Maybe if we could just go through those. Make sure that those are all.
If the board just doesn't mind a question, I believe at the last meeting, and I know my associate Dominique has been before this board, you guys went through the part 2 of the EAF, but was a negative declaration adopted, or?
We're doing that.
Oh,
tonight.
okay,
Yeah,
okay, I just wanted to.
Thank you.
Yes, that is.
Or before the
On the
board
list.
tonight. I can't say what they're gonna do.
Yeah, so. Where is it here? On your memo, you suggested we just
NBR. Mhm.
look through
It's 212-13 G.
right, so. Yeah, I'm seeing. Mostly, I just wanted to look at streetscape standards and. Make sure we still have the bicycle lane, bicycle infrastructure, street trees, anywhere like furniture, street furniture, waste receptacles. I was not present at last time they were in front of us, so I'm not sure about that.
Well, at the last time you guys came here, we talked about putting a bus stop.
We
And you
suggested,
said that you'd be willing to help put a bus stop there.
yeah, what we also suggested though is it might make more sense for it to be on the Rycor property,
Right,
which one of the principals owns.
right,
That
right.
property.
So either way,
Yeah.
it would, I think, satisfy.
And we were going to work with
Good idea.
the county to secure a shelter.
Is that a best efforts thing in terms of how it would appear in a resolution?
Yeah. I did have like another thought about that since,
You
you
did?
guys are part of Rycor. I was thinking it'd be really cool if we could have a heated bus stop. What do you think? I mean, there's a lot of cold people.
I don't know,
going
it's
to work.
a lot of energy
Solar
use for something like that.
Guys are Rycor,
Well, we can
right?
put solar lights and things like
Would
that.
that be cool?
If
It's
you have-
NVR, let's have solar lights.
Even top of solar lights, you could do
I
that.
could ask Scott how that
So are
would.
we saying that that's a condition, or is it feel too soft?
I
to
felt
be
like
a
it was a
condition?
suggestion and
Yeah.
they agreed to be sports.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, do we want to actually have that reflected in the resolution?
Well, we should, because if they're agreeing to it, we should have it.
I think we would ask for it to be best efforts, and the only reason is there may be some changes there to the sidewalk plan, and we're not exactly sure where it might go yet, and
Okay.
we'd have to establish, a
It would
formal
be-
determination from Rycor that they would be
It would be
amenable
off
to
this
that.
particular project site,
Right.
yeah, but
I don't think it matters if it's in front of that one or that one or the other one.
Well, we had suggested in that area because of the proximity of the crosswalk.
And I think that school children could also probably benefit from that if there's kids in the area.
We'd ask you to take that into consideration with the rec fee as well.
That resolution's passed.
Okay.
Anything else on, that you wanted to point out?
No, I think we already reviewed the lighting plan
Yeah.
and most of these things all look like stuff we've talked about before.
I mean, you guys have a lot of land back there. There's lots of stuff you could do if you really want to try to get out of this rec fee. I mean, you could have a toddler playground area, you could have a dog run area. There's plenty of things you could design back there that would be a big benefit to the community. I mean, I'm not saying the bridge isn't, it's great, but like, you could do so much if you want to.
But can you show the site plan for a second? I mean,
They have the picnic benches.
yeah, we
it
did.
would be limited to,
I will say, related to children, there is like a, school age children analysis. Where it talks about based on your room composition, how many kids are gonna come from a
Right,
development.
people are gonna have younger children, maybe with their parents in a small place, not.
I would say probably not coming from any of the one bedroom units.
Yeah.
Those are typically your, your couples, I have two small kids and I can't imagine being in, a tight environment, but so the way it was designed, and maybe Justin, you can elaborate what the picnic area is and kind of the open space, so that when you come off the rail trail, it's not just a, no open space at all.
Yeah, the area that we're referring to, this green space here has picnic tables with our trail connection to the bridge.
You guys gonna have garbage pails and be collecting garbage over there by the picnic areas, or? how's
I mean,
it
we
gonna
do have some receptacles around the building. To facilitate that, we could show one over there as well, I mean, obviously, I think the grounds will be kept
Well,
up
I'm
to
just saying, if you're
be-
inviting people to come off the rail trail to eat their lunch at your picnic table,
Mhm.
you might want to have a garbage pail there.
Good thought.
okay. Well, moving on to affordable housing, just wanted to confirm that there will be 6 affordable units.
Three each.
3 each, okay.
We have not designated where on the floors or what units yet. We don't have unit numbering.
We're gonna kind of go around because they're all interchangeable. All the appliances are the same. We're not making it
No-
worse for anybody.
There's
We're
no
not doing
difference
that, right?
between an affordable or market rate unit in this project.
Did you say 6 or this is 7?
Should be 6 total, 3 of each.
7 is the other.
You're looking
the
at
other
145.
That's similar.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow.
A lot of similarities.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think then we can go on to reviewing the EAF part 3. Did everyone get a chance to read through this? This is based on the part 2 that you all completed last time. personally, I read through it and everything looked good to me. I didn't see any areas where I felt like wanted to add anything, but any comments in the part three narrative? This is basically just, rephrasing what was the plan.
I don't have any further consideration.
Okay.
We talked about having a community room in the facility. Is that still happening?
We I don't recall we had designated a space for that.
Community room? That's the other one.
I think that's the other
Okay.
project. Yeah, we haven't set aside any of that commercial space yet for use by the tenants.
Okay.
They know after it's solar panel.
No,
We
do
have
solar
had
panels.
solar panels on the roof since day one. It's on the roof plan. 88% of our electricity will come from the solar panels on the site. We put some more up there, but we don't have any room because we put all the AC units up there to get them off the ground. And we won't have any rooftop parties or lights.
We
Don't have to
talked
worry
about
about that.
putting the exterior lights on timers, and motion detectors in parking lots.
We did discuss that the parking lot lights will probably stay lit, but all of our lighting, as we showed previously on our lighting plan, stays within the site. But there will be appropriate timers and motion where it is appropriate to happen. Some areas will need to stay lit just because of the functionality of the building for safety.
Hours for construction.
We did have those in the
Yeah.
EAF.
Yeah. Are you sticking with what's in the E EAF?
I mean, unless it needed to be adjusted to meet like noise ordinances and things like that, yeah.
Pretty reasonable site to allow work and during those hours.
Okay. If there are no more comments about the EF part three, then I think we might be ready for the seeker negative declaration. Can I get a motion to give PB 22-11 a negative declaration? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You can sign that part 3 before we leave tonight.
Sure,
Yeah,
yes,
thanks.
I can do that. And what are the?
I don't think
Can
we
you
need
walk
to
us
go
through
through
the
those
next step?
conditions unless there's anything you wanted to add, so you could just authorize a resolution for the next time.
Okay. Sorry, what was that?
Yeah.
It's currently not a condition. The special use permit.
Oh, well, it's kind of a condition of us approving it. We'll
Okay.
have it and put it in, it won't show as a condition, it'll
Because
be
it'll be
integrated in.
provided.
Okay. Yes, I mean, all these look good. So in that case, I'd like to get a motion to authorize our attorney to draft a resolution of approval, including the listed specific conditions.
Do you want to just read them off for the applicants? Because
That'd be great. Yeah.
Your first one.
Condition 1, rail trail access, including access across site.
we have the draft of that we got back some comments on.
Okay. Okay. Stormwater infrastructure, applicant to file stormwater control facility maintenance agreement and post-performance bond. pump station, applicant to execute developers agreement to contribute up to $195,150 towards pump station upgrade. Recreation fee, DOT approvals, affordable housing requirements, and finally the SWIP approval.
The SWIP approval, which we had
Oh, did
gotten
you
that.
already get that?
We got that,
Okay.
I think we got it like right the day of our last meeting, so.
And nothing's changed since then.
Oh, no,
Okay,
no,
great.
we had gotten the sign off from Dennis's office, so,
So. don't do
Take that off.
thank you.
If I could just add maybe some language related to the developer's agreement of the pump station. I have Emily and I and the village attorney, Will Frank, have been trying to speak now for a couple days. You know, there might be a couple different ways, depending on how the village wants to approach the construction of the pump station. For example, they might want both the applicants to contribute. They might want one of the applicants to do the actual construction. So if we could just leave that condition flexible to either we'll construct it or we will, you know, each will pay the half.
Okay, yeah.
There's also a
that.
pending grant application through the Momentum Fund that we're all waiting to hear on, so
Right. Understood. So in that case, if you all agree on the conditions, I'd like to get a motion to authorize our attorney to draft the resolution approval with the previously listed conditions. Wait,
So you're modifying this pump station, this requirement here.
well, we're just leaving the language flexible, so to allow different ways of accomplishing that.
It looks like they basically split it in half, the amount they're charging, the total was $413,500.
Right, yeah. Mhm. So wait, so where were we? Did
Rich moved.
Rich moves?
Moved.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
we know you have a busy meeting on the 5th, but couldn't we return for the final approval on the 5th? Is that possible? We go last every time. This should be quick by then.
Yeah, I think we will try our best. I think I just have to talk to Autumn and look at the agenda and see what's already been committed there. But We'll see. We'll get back to you on that.
Don't we just have the public hearing on December 5th?
No, there were a couple other things, so. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea how many people are gonna show up to make comments on New Paltz Apartments. Could be even more than last time. Yeah, it could be. Definitely. So,
You could start at 6. We can come at 6 if you want.
we'll let you know.
Do all the business first, right?
Okay, but
Any other questions for us before we depart?
no.
Okay. Had enough for one night, Rich?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We thought we were gonna be up an hour ago.
Yeah.
Thought to sleep the whole meeting.
Charlie's still with you, so.
Yep.
Okay. PB 2302, 145 North Chestnut. Okay, so we are almost done here, but there are a couple more outstanding things. First, the SCP issue. So we'd like to see a similar thing to 137 with the list of uses and the narrative similar to. your
Yep, I
approach.
already wrote down that note, so I'll get that to the board shortly.
Great. And are any of the first floor apartments not accessible units?
No, they're all accessible, and I even have to refresh my recollection, but they are all accessible. But I will make sure to confirm that with our project architect and our project engineer, who are all on enjoying their Thanksgiving weeks.
So how many residents do you expect to be living on the premises of this building?
So let me just pull up, we have, I think it's a total of, I was trying to do some quick math, I think it's around 68 units. And so that's a combination of 2 and 1 bedrooms. So if you, and I'm just going through the size based on the rec fees, there's 57 units that are between 999 square feet and 501 square feet. And so those aren't going to generate a lot. So you're probably looking at, I would say, maybe around 110, if we're doing kind of the pro rata of what our prior said and what we said. And so we'd be looking for that same suggestion to the village board about connection to the rail trail, allowing pedestrians to access that rail trail, walking through the site, through the access easement. And then that rail trail then sends you off to multiple places for recreation and so forth.
But this site is a little different in that there is no public access through the site, right?
So there's no public parking, right? So you can't drive there as like a destination. But I do believe the rail trail site would allow someone to walk through the site into the connection.
Really what they described in the past
My
meetings.
recollection was they said that they weren't necessarily inviting the public to use that.
Yeah. It's more for the residents. Yeah. Building.
So I'll confirm that. We had a conference call today with the development team. And the distinction in my mind was made of, I think there was confusion at the last board meeting of, can people park and then go to the rail trail and then come back and drive off? And that's not going to be permitted, because that would be a parking issue and a new use issue and so forth. But people accessing the site through, I will confirm that, but it's my understanding that, you know, if you're walking on the sidewalk, you're connecting to the rail trail, that could happen. But again, I'll confirm it.
And similar to the comment we had earlier, it's the question that we asked this board is, will this new population create an increase in demand for recreational facilities? Just by virtue of you providing a passage to the trail, it's a confirmation that this 100 people are going to be a new demand on the recreational facilities that exist. So I think that's something that we're clear about. We can walk through the steps on it. But I think any other consideration, and just like the other group, could be asked of the village board. But I think there's been a precedent that we don't have a lot of discretion about how to, how to offer any kind of offsets on the rail trail.
Sure. I would suggest maybe the similar language about recognizing that we're making the access to the rail trail. The estimated recreation fees, granted, this is attorney math, but it's $222,500. So we're not talking about, similar to the other project, an insignificant amount. And so the recognition of the connection to the rail trail in your resolution would be appreciated. And then, further discussions with the village board when we go there for the easements and the developers
Quick
agreements.
question, what other recreation space on the site would you argue will exist for your residents?
So for this one, we don't have the larger backyard like 137 does.
Right, so 137 wants to share their backyard with the community and they don't have a backyard to share. That's the difference.
Yeah. And I mean, I also really thought it was a different developer, was discouraging the public from walking through their parking lot, and so. Yeah, I don't really feel comfortable making that same.
Maybe we have to find out
recommendation.
more, like, because you don't know.
Well, what I can do is I can confirm it. I just don't want to speak out of hand. And I can contact Emily. And then.
Right.
So we could hold
Well-
off on making that decision tonight. If you want.
Okay, I guess that wouldn't.
I would say, when you're reading that code related to the recreation fee, it's, the added need, let's say I'm wrong and, the pedestrian access through the site was discouraged. It's based off the need for recreation for the residents. So even if we're talking about the residents are the only ones allowed to use the rail trail, it's still a satisfaction of some leniency in that review.
But the consideration is on site. So, the language is specific to say that where there are adequate park facilities can be located on the site. The answer is no. So it's a pretty rigid set of questions that are a logic behind whether we should make a recommendation for a fee.
Sure.
But it might make sense to include the bridge as an asset in either case, because it is assisting those residents with accessing. I mean, it's up to you.
Well, it assists them, but it doesn't help them because they're gonna be going to Morelia Park and they're gonna be going all around to other places that we have to pay for.
Just whether it's an offset or not a full.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to getting clarification from the applicant before we actually make that resolution to the planning.
I'd be
board.
interested in knowing how the path is gonna go and how the front access, how it's gonna open up in front, like, are the people gonna be like coming next to the building if they're coming through? Or are they gonna be coming through the parking lot right to the sidewalk? Like, how's that path gonna go?
So this one. I think so North Chestnut's here. So it would be through the site and then through the path. And that's to ensure that we don't have any pedestrian conflicts where there's this existing joint access or pedestrian conflicts here. So it was through the door, through the site, out the back, and then there's the pedestrian pathway there.
Which is why I understood that it wasn't publicly
Yeah.
accessible because it has to go through the building.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you said so people will go through the building.
It's just for.
Correct. And again, I'll confirm that.
Will it look welcoming? Will people who want to make use of that feel comfortable doing that? Walking into it.
Well, let me get to the bottom of the question of whether or not the public can go through the building.
Can I
I
ask
mean,
you a
certainly
question?
it'll look welcoming.
You guys said that you're gonna have a room on the bottom floor that people who live in the building can go hang out. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
So it's like a community room for the community that lives there. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Okay.
So if you live there and you want to have.
No,
a
no,
couple
no, I
friends over,
understand,
you
but
can
if you
hang out.
don't live there,
Then you have to get invited. You have to get invited by someone that lives there. Unless you guys rent that room out to community members, which would be a great thing. We need places that we can rent to have little parties and stuff like that. That would be a really good community asset. Is that something you're thinking about doing?
Right now that, there will be a community room like there are in many multifamily buildings like this for residents. And typically, if a resident wants to rent out that room or designate that room to have people over and so forth, that would be one thing. I think once you're renting it out to people who don't live there, then I think you're going into a new use, right? You're kind of, I don't know what you would call the use, but it's then no longer accessory to the multifamily aspect of it.
Is the washer and dryer is gonna be in the units or?
Yes.
That's in each unit?
Yes.
Every unit has a set.
Yes.
Okay, and regard to affordable housing, the 7 units are set aside, and I'm seeing from your affordable housing plan, you have them listed by floor with a variety of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom. You mind if we look at the site plan?
Yeah.
Rachel, are there any elevations or renderings?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was,
I feel like there was a discussion at one of the meetings about the affordable units and whether they were 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. Did we resolve that?
so there's this memo, from,
The plan, I think, shows 1, 2 bedroom. Is that right?
yeah, it shows 1 2 bedroom, 1 3 bedroom, 2 1 bedroom. Well, actually, 4 1 bedroom, 1 studio, and then 1 2 and 1 3.
Is that's okay with everyone?
Yeah.
What is the distribution? I'm sorry, it's a good point, because now I'm recalling that we might want to consider whether we might ask for a different distribution there. What is the distribution of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s in the building?
So on the first floor, this is affordable units. On the first floor, you'll have 2
I'm sorry
1
to
bedroom.
interrupt, but I was asking, what is the distribution of those types of units in the building? How many 3s, how many 2s, how many 1s, and how many studios in the building?
Total.
Oh, okay, gotcha, not affordable.
Because what I'm getting at is, we might want to consider requesting a higher number of 2 or 3 bedroom units.
Sure.
It's not a requirement of the applicant, but I think it would be a certain valuable consideration. Yeah, like a valuable consideration for the community and all those advocates for affordable housing that have come before the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as it's
So what is-
proportional.
Yeah. what is
Sure,
the-
so the distribution is, you have 2 studios, 42 1 bedrooms, 17 2 bedrooms, 7 3 bedrooms.
So there's only 2 studios in the entire building,
Correct.
and you want to give how many to?
1 studio would be affordable. So that's half of studios.
No comment.
I might advocate for 1 additional 2 bedroom
Yeah,
out of the 17.
maybe you can trade in the studio and the 1 bedroom for 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, or 1 less 1 bedroom and 1 more 2 bedroom, so it would be 1 3 2 2s. 3 1s and the studio is acceptable. But I would say that maybe we should
Ask for one more.
Request
I agree. I think 1 more 2 bedroom would be appropriate
Yeah.
to replace either the studio or 1 bedroom.
I feel like the studio is a little disingenuous if there's only 2 studios in the entire building. I don't want you to take it personally.
Well, I think if you,
I don't think that has to be the affordable unit.
from an affordable perspective, you know, the studios, obviously from a market value, will have a lower rent, right? So then if they become affordable, then it's an even lower. And so it gives someone the option who, on an affordable level, might not even be able to afford the 1 bedroom, but then there's the studio option.
Doesn't
So-
really take account of like a family. No.
So would it be a request of the applicant to include in the resolution that be the distribution?
Yeah, I'm open to that.
Could you say Because this will, I can go back and confirm and look at the proportionality of it, but what was the numbers you had mentioned, just so I can read them?
1 3-bedroom, 2 2-bedrooms,
Hang
3
on.
1-bedrooms,
I'm not that fast. I got one 3-bedroom,
2 2-bedrooms, 3 1-bedrooms,
3
and the studios, because I understand that studio rationale.
So,
Yes.
and that's for affordable?
That's the 7
Okay, so
units.
that's 7.
So we're adding 1 2-bedroom to the
Yes.
original proposal.
If you look at the 10%, if 7 3-bedrooms, with 1 affordable, 17 2-bedrooms, 2 affordable is kind of on that 10% ratio, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that distribution. I think that's fair.
So, along with the other things that I had mentioned, we can confirm prior to the next meeting, and I'll add that to the list.
And I want to acknowledge that, adding 3 family-sized homes to our affordable housing roles is a really valuable
Yes.
thing. A 3-bedroom apartment, we don't have a lot of those or any of them in the prior building, so we should all acknowledge that that's a good thing for the neighborhood.
So maybe this is off topic, but the other building, when I was confused before, what are there affordable apartments in the other building? And is the distribution of those acceptable to us?
They were doing 3 of each.
So better than what this originally was.
Yeah. And they only have 2 bedrooms as their largest, so.
Yeah.
that was-
Right, I mean, you can't.
And they didn't have any studios that I know of, so.
So here, we're just essentially just trying to figure out what the change was.
Swapping 1 1-bedroom.
One more
for a 2
bedroom, right, okay. Had to
Just
put my
leaves the developer
architect
a
hat
little
on.
money on the table, but.
I like to take that studio
I think
out
it's
and
a
turn
pretty
it into one
important.
bedroom.
It's pretty-
Okay, then,
Solar panels.
They're not. I can talk to the applicant. That is not in the design of the building as it is now. It is going to be with green infrastructure and up to date with the energy codes and the building codes, but solar panels aren't proposed.
yeah, but I mean, you are providing some electric charging infrastructure, that's right, and.
Yeah, there's 13 EV charging stations at the planning board's request.
I appreciate where you're coming from on that issue, Rachel, and I think that we could commit to a practice of raising this question and maybe even this imperative earlier in the process, where, if there's any building engineering considerations and site plan considerations that would be required in order to have solar infrastructure, we should be, I appreciate where you're coming from, and I think we need to be front loading that conversation in these site plan reviews.
I suppose that would be better, but it's certainly not an impediment, really. I mean, most of the buildings that have had solar panels in the village had the solar panels put on after they were built. And were built not with I'm finally getting them. It took me 15 years. We had a teeny tiny little steep roof, and that's why. But I mean, it just seems like a shame to me to have a situation like this where you're just starting out. You got a building, there's no trees around it, it's got a big flat roof, you've got all that sun. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why not? Why did they're.
I mean, I think we can also acknowledge that New Paltz has a community solar agreement, and everyone in the village opts in receiving solar power directly from Central Hudson. Oh, okay, so that doesn't
No,
count?
it's not the same as like generating power by having the solar panels on the roof.
But it's the same as not burning fossil fuels to generate power.
Are you kidding? I mean.
I don't know, that was my understanding.
mean, they're, I mean, we could talk about some.
Yeah, we could talk about Central Hudson. Bring you back.
But
Yeah,
do you know what the CCA is? It's Central Hudson is just transmitting the power. They're not the ones that are generating it.
well, they are the
Do
ones
you,
that
do
tore
you
up the street. and
have
put
Central,
trapped
do you,
gas.
I mean, you must have electricity provided by Central.
I
Okay.
really want us to move. forward.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about this right now.
Okay.
I want to acknowledge
Yeah.
Rachel's effort.
Yes, you're
And I
right.
want to say that, like, let's make that part of our early stage site plan review conversations. Because we're not gonna have the ability at this stage in a proposal of this magnitude to say, can you add solar? So we missed the mark, we missed the opportunity, but let's start doing it earlier.
I appreciate that. I disagree that it's too late. It's not too late. And I didn't really start thinking about it until I mean, I've obviously always been in favor of solar panels, but I didn't realize that how much harder we could push for them until I read that memo from the county. And like, the county is asking us to do this. It's not like, you know, we should be doing this. We should be doing this. And not only that, one of the things that they said about community character is that we have input as far as that goes. We don't just have to go with, oh, it has to have a mansard roof and be bland color with, you know, wood grain or whatever it is they're asking. We can actually talk about community character, and that's part of it.
I've always known that we can talk about community characters.
No, I mean, but we can make our own guidelines for it. We've done that. We don't have those. We're planning for that's what was in the memo that we got.
Okay, yeah, that's, I mean,
So there's
that's
no-
noted
there's
and,
no-
I mean, certainly like, we could ask the applicant to
I'd like to push smart on this.
investigate that or at least provide some sort of narrative or explanation about why that's not possible or not practical right now.
Sure, we can address the comment.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is that a conversation? You want it?
Well,
Well, discuss them at the least.
The village board should look at that if it's gonna be a zoning requirement.
okay, yes, that's.
Well, we could
that's true,
actually
too.
have a meeting and work on a memo. And send the village board a memo with your ideas. And then ask them, request that they consider that going forward in law for new construction. Just give them the idea, give them the heads up. So maybe we want to put that on a future agenda. Have a quick meeting about that and put a little letter together and then we could send it to them.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so I think at this point we've reviewed all of the key things we need to look at tonight. Like to, before we talk about authorizing a resolution, just want to go through these special conditions that will be included. So first one is rail trail access, including access.
That's a copy and paste error. It doesn't
Okay.
include across the site.
Okay, so the special condition would just be rail trail access.
Correct. We have that already from them.
Got
But
it.
we still don't really know if the public can really use it or not. So we're still waiting to find that out.
Yes, correct. Second condition would be the pump station applicant to execute developer's agreement to contribute up to $195,150 towards pump station upgrade.
With the same flexibility.
Like the other one. I wonder why they split it in half. When it doesn't add up to the total cost and
I mean,
one
that's-
building's bigger than the other.
That's for
It doesn't
there
seem-
to then
Figure that out.
To decide.
So I will add to, just to the pump station, so, you know, that pump station is currently getting existing flows from existing neighbors, existing
Right.
uses and so forth.
Right.
So really, if we were doing a pro rata share, it would kind of almost be, what are each project flows doing what then would the village be on the hook for, which would be much more than the two applicants. But the applicants are willing to work together and split the cost of a new pump station for the village.
It's good you're working for both applicants, so it'll be easy for you to negotiate that between the two of them. One has a couple more beds in their place than the other. They might have to pay a little more or whatever, but you can figure that out because we don't really care. As long as it
Right,
gets
right.
paid,
It's just kind of put it on, right. The app, yeah,
We just want to get paid.
absolutely.
Third condition is reciprocal access easement with car wash, applicant to execute and file agreement with car wash.
And dog wash.
And
Sharing and entry.
the fifth, sorry, the fourth condition would be recreation fee. Fifth, DOT approvals. Sixth are the affordable housing requirements. And the final special condition would be the SWIP approval.
Yeah,
Is
do
that
we,
one?
I should check if we already got this with approval. I'll
That's
check.
TBD. That may not need to be on there. So given those special conditions, I'd like to get a motion to authorize our attorney to draft a resolution of approval with the listed conditions.
Can I just have a question?
Yes.
Would that mean that any of the final clarifications would be baked into the resolution? So you'll do that. Yeah.
We'll get those to Emily early next week.
So moved. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. On the topic, I think it's really separate from this project. No,
During the meeting, or is it
No.
about planning board business or?
it's about planning, board,
Okay, yeah, good.
but it's not. You tell me if it's accepted. But the subject, the issue about, talking about, for instance, access to the rail trail. If the access to the rail trail is only through building, then that, if that is, and again, I'm not talking about specific, I'm talking about going forward. Then what does it mean to say that this location is providing access to the rail trail? If the rail trail access is through the building, that doesn't seem
It's only for the
fair.
residents.
That, right, so would there, so that then it is only for the residents, so it's not as though there could be a gate that other people could use. The point is that it is only for the residents.
That's kind of the difference between these two projects.
Well, that's why I'm asking, and that's why I'm trying to get clear. And
There's no requirement that anyone allow people through their site to
No,
get to
I'm-
the rail
yeah,
trail. That
I
was something,
understand, I
right,
understand.
yeah.
It just sounds kind of, I don't know. It's nice to say, oh, no, there's access to the rail trail when there really isn't access to the rail trail, except for people who
Just for the residents.
yeah.
I think, if there was another project in the future that had a building that people had to go through, we would have to get very specific about, when the doors were going to be open
No, of
and,
course.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to
We'll be
lay this on.
That was
building.
dreadful.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
what I'm asking is, if there is a property that does have access to the rail trail, and we don't want to ask them for strangers to go through the building, I wouldn't request that, that's not. Would there be a fence along the outside of the building? Or, even a gated way that wouldn't have anything to do with the residents of the building, if they're then saying that the building access. And I'm only asking it because I may be being very naive, but it's occurring to me.
We should have signage that says.
We need
no
resolution.
public access to the building.
Yeah.
So that a person who's on the rail trail isn't misled, thinking there's somewhere they can go there
For example,
and waste their time coming over there.
for example.
Yeah. Well, before we discuss this any further, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
All in favor?